What is good, everyone? Welcome to the channel. My name is Paul. I make videos about Japanese society, life, and culture from the viewpoint of a long-term foreign resident. I've been in Japan for 20 years, and doing this YouTube channel, I've been blessed with a really great following of people who have subscribed and who comment regularly on my videos. So I wanted to give all of you a chance to ask me some questions. So about a week and a half ago, I put out a video where I asked for questions from you, promising that I would answer a number of them on October the 11th, which is probably when you're seeing this video or a few days later. And I will actually probably turn a few of those questions into an entire standalone video, because a couple of the questions I read early on, I just thought, wow, that would be great as a standalone video. So if I don't answer your question today, it might be that I'm going to make a whole video about it in the future. So honestly, my comment section is one of the best things about doing this YouTube channel. And I should have done this question and answer thing when I hit 10,000 subscribers, but I didn't. Better late than not at all. Another thing that I've been lucky about doing this channel is that I've actually managed to get a few sponsors. One of them is the sponsor of today's video, SakuraCo. SakuraCo is an artisanal Japanese snack box where they make a curated box of unique sweets and treats from Japan, and they send them all over the world. Not every single country, but a lot of places in the world you can order SakuraCo. I will tell you more about them later. Now the first question is, and I'm just kind of going in the order I received them, Gerald Maloney 9309 says, tell us about the etiquette at a Japanese funeral. What to say, how to hold yourself in the space, etc. First of all, this is one of those events where I say, do as the Japanese do, where you just need to be kind of really aware and watch how people are doing, acting, the motions that they go through in front of you. The first thing you need to know is you have to have a black suit with a black tie. That is the formal funeral attire. So you can actually get cheap 100 yen black ties in like convenience stores or 100 yen shops. So if you don't have a black tie, you can get one on a moment's notice at those places. When you arrive at the funeral place, there will be a kind of a monetary donation. You're supposed to give old money, not crisp new bills, because crisp new bills are for celebration. You give old money for funerals, and something like to the amount of like 5,000 yen or something like that in a funeral envelope that you can also buy at a convenience store. What you do at the funeral itself, again, just watch how other people do it. I could explain it, but there's some videos on the net or some how to do guides on Google, etc. So you could go and check before you go what you might need to do. Except I would say that if you just watch the people in front of you and follow what they do, you can pick up basically what's going to happen. The next question is from SkipLeakFrog 9874. I've noticed that dojos in Okinawa are filled to the brim with photos, knickknacks, and other assorted memorabilia, but dojos in mainland Japan are basically empty. What's up with that? This one, a little difficult to answer because I have not been to Okinawa, and I certainly haven't been to any Okinawa dojos. But dojos in mainland Japan tend to be relatively stark, not a lot of memorabilia. You know, they don't put up tournament trophies and things like that. They tend to be pretty Spartan, probably in the samurai dojo tradition, where you'd usually have, like, at the front you have a tokonoma with a scroll with calligraphy painting, and maybe some fresh flowers, and sometimes they will have a kamidana, which is a god shelf, where there will be like the god of that dojo, and there will be an offering of sake and rice and other things that are typically found on those shelves. But as for why they are much more eclectic in their decorations in Okinawa, I'm not sure, especially since karate is from Okinawa originally. So I guess mainland Japan imported the art but didn't import the dojo style, kept it more like the old samurai style dojos. Next question, I really like this one. This is from Bartlin. The serious question is, what is the cat's name? Not sarcasm, I generally want to know. I like cats. Well, technically his name is Felix, but he's more often referred to as Deefus, and that's why at the very end screen on all my videos it all says a Fuzz Deefus production. The name comes from how the nickname, The Fuzz, DeFuzz, Defuss, that's how it evolved. So everyone around him just refers to him as Deefus. Next one is a much more important question from Willow7435. What's it like paying taxes in Japan as a US citizen? Do you still have enough money left over to save or spend after paying US taxes? The United States is one of the only countries that makes its citizens file their taxes if they're living abroad. And so every year I do have to file a tax return. However, there is a earned income, like abroad income, what is it? Is it a credit or it's a exemption? Yeah, exemption is the word I'm looking for, which is depending on the year, it goes up every year. And with the really weak yen recently, I've never been close to the exemption limit. So it's over, I think it's a little bit over $100,000 now. So if you make more than $100,000, you might owe taxes in America. And certainly if you have investments in America, like you have stocks or something that you sell in the US through a US broker, you might have taxes to pay on that regardless of your residency in Japan. But if you don't make over $100,000, it's unlikely. But I do have to file every year to prove that I don't have to pay taxes. Next question from Cheesy Ground Beef. What are polite ways to acknowledge someone saying thank you since your welcome isn't really a thing here? Good question. One of the ways that I will acknowledge a thank you is kind of a humble response that's like, nanimonai like, or it's don't worry about it. And do itashimashite is the phrase you learn in Japanese class, but I have to admit that you don't hear do itashimashite as often as you'd hear you're welcome in the US. So it's not used in exactly the same way, or at least the same frequency. Sometimes just say smile and bow is sufficient, but you won't be wrong if you say do itashimashite, or you won't be wrong if you're like betsu ni nanimo desu, like it wasn't anything, don't worry about it. That's how you can respond to a thank you or expression of gratitude. The next question, the essential do's and don'ts when meeting your Japanese partner's parents. I think that's going to be a standalone video in the future. Next question by Noli Sarmiento 1719. Is it still a good idea for a foreigner to buy a house in the countryside there? I'm hearing more and more prefectures are tightening rules on foreigners buying properties, especially those cheap akiya. I haven't heard about tightening rules about purchasing akiya, because for the most part, local governments will love it if you purchase those empty abandoned houses, because they're just sitting there providing no local tax revenue, and most Japanese people don't want them. So I haven't heard of that happening, but in general, I'm not a huge fan of the whole akiya craze, and I've actually made a couple of videos detailing why. I will link those in the description below so you can check that out if you want to. Next question, Shogun Charlie asks, what would you say your major hobbies are in Japan in terms of time spent? How many opportunities do you get per year to explore the country? Well, my major hobbies now are running, which I use to help me to explore the country, because I will join some kind of marathon event somewhere. I actually won the lottery for Tokyo Marathon in 2026, so I will join that one. Last year I did Shizuoka Marathon in Shizuoka City, so that hobby actually combines with some of the travel that I get to do. Oh, it's noon. There's the noon bell. So I go on a trip with the family every winter vacation pretty much, and usually I go to a conference, a domestic conference somewhere in Japan due to my work, and so that will let me get to a new area of Japan as well. Like I went to Fukui last year for a conference, and I'd never been to Fukui Prefecture before. Past hobbies, well, I spoke about dojos a moment ago. I used to do a martial art. I used to do kenjutsu. I spent a number of years doing that. I would go to Machida, Tokyo every weekend, every Sunday, and practice kenjutsu, which is, it's not kendo, it's not with the armor and the bamboo swords, it's with wooden swords and also metal swords for the drawing, striking, resheathing exercises, iai-jutsu. But I haven't done that in a number of years. But that was really one of the first major hobbies I had that was really Japanese. I also play the shamisen. I took shamisen lessons for 3 years and still pull it out of the case from time to time. So yeah, that's still a Japanese hobby that I do. Next question, Steven1657. Have you visited all 47 prefectures of Japan? I want to, but no, I have not. I'm still well short of that. I think I've visited in the upper 20s. I think the last time I counted, I had visited 28 or 29, something like that. So I've got a ways to go, especially south. I haven't been to either the islands of Shikoku or Kyushu yet, so that's a big gap in my Japan experience. Next, Alex Best 381 asks, having recently read Ghost of Tsunami by Richard Lloyd Perry, I was wondering if Japan's earthquakes are something you worry about living there. Of course, it's something that we not only worry about but prepare for. Our house is stocked with water and food that we buy new stock occasionally and either eat or throw the old stock away, just in case something big happens. Not only earthquakes, but also Mount Fuji erupting, even in Yokohama, would be an issue with all of the ash that could fall. And I lived here during the March 11th earthquake in 2011, and so I've experienced a Japan post-major earthquake when regular TV program was off and everything was just news and public service announcements for weeks, and items were missing from shelves for the longest time, and being in Yokohama, things would restock. But if we were in the area that was actually affected, obviously that wouldn't be happening. So having emergency supplies on hand is just a must if you spend time in Japan. Municipalities have emergency supplies, and so we've joined our neighborhood, the neighborhood groups where we've gone and we've seen what would happen in an evacuation and what we'd have to do. So very much aware of it. I wouldn't say I'm afraid of it, but obviously I'm hoping it doesn't happen in my lifetime, that we have a major one. But if it does, at least I feel we've prepared as much as we could. Okay, this next question, Tetsujin28, asks a question about at work, what does your daily routine responsibilities entail? I made a video about that a few years ago, but it could use an update, so I might do that as a full video coming up, especially since I'm actually looking for new work now. I got my PhD back in June, and so I'm looking for a better job now that I have a newly minted doctorate. So that actually might change what I'm doing, and I was thinking I'd actually make a video about job hunting in Japan, because that's actually something I'm in the midst of right now. This next question from Mediamic5644, do you sometimes feel invisible and hyper visible at the same time in Japan? And how do you live with that paradox? That is a great question, because it's true. Sometimes I feel invisible and sometimes I feel like everyone's looking at me. In my day-to-day daily life grind and routine, I feel pretty invisible, because probably just my mindset is that it's what I do every day. I clearly dress like I'm going to work, so people will probably not take me for a tourist, and everyone's just thinking about their own commute and they're in their own world when they're on the train or the bus or whatever. And especially things like my bus, I'm generally on the bus with the same people every day, so they're just used to seeing me there. I feel like I'm hyper visible when I go to any kind of tourist area or a place where there's a lot of tourists. I feel a little hyper visible when I walk around with this camera. Like, people definitely look at, I almost said they look at me, but they actually look at the camera. The camera draws focus. And then, oh, okay, now there's a foreigner filming, whatever. I do feel a little bit visible at times, but I've gotten used to that. Yeah, in terms of how I balance that or how I live with that paradox, I think it just all slides off my back. I think I've said in previous videos that if being hyper visible bothers you, just in general, your character, etc., Japan will be a hard place to live. So that's probably a good indicator of whether Japan is the right place for you to be or not, is if that bothers you. It doesn't bother me. I don't pay attention to it most times. Snow White 4711 says, do you teach your students in Japanese or English? I love your channel, by the way. Thank you. I teach my students in English, but I sprinkle Japanese in where necessary. I'm a huge lover of oyaji gag, or dad jokes, and most of the oyaji gag that I tell my students are in Japanese. So yeah, I enjoy getting my students to groan at my terrible jokes, and they're usually surprised the first time I break them out, because they don't expect me to use Japanese. But classes are almost entirely in English. IAD_flyer says, in your day-to-day life, do you need to use a fax machine to get business done? Okay, that famous stereotype that Japan loves fax machines, and while they still are very much in use here, I haven't used them. I haven't used a fax machine in years, so no, that's not a part of my life at all. May Mac asks, in what level of social interaction is small talk acceptable? Small talk as in, oh, how long have you lived in this city? Small talk, obviously if you're in some kind of establishment like a izakaya or a drinking place, you can start conversations this way. But if we're talking in daily life, I actually think that small talk is pretty much okay in countryside environments, like where I'm walking now. I'm out in Kawaguchiko in Yamanashi Prefecture, and basically local people in smaller towns are much more likely to be happy to talk to you and be happy to kind of start a conversation. Big cities like Tokyo, everyone's just kind of got their head down and the blinders on, like you imagine horses wearing, because they're just getting through their day in a mega city where they're just surrounded by people all the time. But I found out in the countryside, especially if you lead with Japanese, Japanese local people are just like, oh, I've fallen into a lot of ordinary conversations out in places like this. Countryside areas, it's not weird to use small talk at all, to be honest. Crepusculum7472 says, you mentioned your past involvement in martial arts in Japan. Can you speak more about training, especially point of view of an American? I think I just talked a little bit about my kenjutsu training, but I think the main thing to add to that is I've also done martial arts in the States. I did Taekwondo and I did Wing Chun Kung Fu and a little bit of Judo long in the past. There's a difference in discipline and focus. I feel like American dojos tend to be a lot more relaxed and like kind of friendly and open. Friendly is the wrong word, because Japanese dojos, I've definitely never felt they were unfriendly. But there's a level of seriousness that is different in terms of the discipline and focus aspect. Although there was an interesting thing that my kenjutsu sensei once said. He said that a lot of the foreigners who do kenjutsu in his, he does some international dojo friendship events, and he says that in his experience, a lot of foreigners take the kenjutsu even more seriously, because for them, they're viewing it as this art form that they're trying to perfect and like do it in the correct way. And he said where he has a lot of students, like Japanese students, who it's just a hobby, like they do sword art as a hobby, like we might do like playing basketball as a hobby or something like that. So that was interesting. I never would have expected him to say something like that, and it was very interesting for me to hear it. But at the same time, I know a good friend of mine was talking about a dojo where they live in the US being so different, because like everyone's just kind of happy-go-lucky and no one treats it seemingly with the same level of seriousness in terms of like, bowing to the mat before you get on and the cleaning afterwards and like showing reverence towards your sensei, that sort of thing. So there are definitely some differences. Dejan Saksik 9957. Sorry, I'm definitely going to destroy a lot of these names. Is working culture in Japan getting in a better direction from your perspective? I heard that working hours are getting better. Younger Japanese are paying more attention to the idea of work-life balance, and they are definitely trying to have a better work-life balance than what they saw their parents or most of their fathers have when they were growing up. The traditional salaryman thing is kind of going by the wayside, but it's not just younger people's attitudes, it's also the fact that unlimited long-term employment that companies used to offer, due to the economy, those are fewer than in the past. Like more people are temporary workers, which also allows them to be a little less samurai loyal to their company and have a better work-life balance. So in that respect, whichever reason you want to look to, that's definitely a change I've found. There's more men especially who take time at home with their families and spend time helping to raise kids, etc. Okay, so I'm running out of time to film here today. I have to get to work actually. So I'm gonna go and talk a little bit about our sponsor SakuraCo, but please stick around because after that I will finish my filming somewhere in Yokohama, and I will answer a bunch more questions, so stay tuned. I will end on one final question, which is Rocky Boy 623. What are attitudes towards the different Asian ethnicities in Japan? Growing up in Hawaii, there are definitely preconceptions and biases between the different groups. There are definitely preconceptions here. If you are a person of a certain Asian descent and you're living in Japan, you'll often be seen as working a certain particular type of job. One of the stereotypes is that if you're Filipino, a woman, you have been working in a pub or some kind of Filipino bar. If you are Vietnamese, you're probably working in construction or something like that. There are definitely stereotypes. Obviously, not all Vietnamese are working construction, and not all Filipinos are working in a bar. For example, I know a lot of Filipino teachers here, so that's a very different thing. But yeah, there are preconceptions, and there are still issues with other Asian ethnicities being kind of looked down upon by some Japanese. I would be lying if I said there weren't instances of discrimination when it comes to people's attitudes towards people of Asian descent other than Japanese. That to go into more detail would probably take an entire video by itself, but there's a thumbnail sketch for you. Okay, let's hear from our sponsor. Please watch the whole sponsor ad, and after that I will answer some more questions from Yokohama. See you there. Everyone, welcome to the October autumn themed SakuraCo box. I'm going to start right off by brewing the tea. The weather's finally turned cooler here, and it's actually tea drinking weather for real. So let's have some of this sencha from Shizuoka. So what is SakuraCo? SakuraCo is a monthly Japanese artisan snack box that supports local makers across Japan. Each box is carefully curated with traditional and seasonal snacks like mochi, dorayaki, manju, and more, including signature Japanese teas and an exclusive houseware item. The houseware item this month is a neko furoshiki, or a playful cat wrapping cloth. It actually features a maneki neko, which is good luck and good fortune. SakuraCo globally delivers an authentic taste of Japan to your home because their mission is you can experience Japan from the comfort of your own home through SakuraCo. Each book includes a cultural booklet featuring snack descriptions, allergen information, and fun insights about Japanese culture. This month we have amazing features about Nikko, which is in Tochigi Prefecture. Nikko City is absolutely beautiful in the autumn. The overall theme of Nikko's autumn splendor is really richly represented by the treats that are in this box. It's featuring many different ingredients that are associated with the fall. Okay, let's let that steep for a moment. So normally I look through the booklet and think about what I'm going to pair with the tea, but when I was taking the treats out of the box this time, I knew exactly what I wanted to have. And the first thing is definitely this sweet potato treat, which is apparently from Tochigi Prefecture. It's one of the featured confectioners in the book, and they talk about how Wakayama Shoten began in 1946. It blends the sweetness of Beni Azuma sweet potatoes and the Miyauchi yuzu and Tochigi strawberries together. And the package here even says they use a little bit of apple sweetness from Aomori Prefecture. The other featured one is actually the one I'm going to eat next because I just have to try it. It sounds way too interesting. And that is this Nikko Foods Tradition Born from Passion chapter where they talk about yuba. Now the actual yuba treat is explained on a different page. It says it's a Nikko delicacy made from delicate skin that is formed from simmering soy milk, Nikko mountain spring water, and then lightly seasoned with salt and pepper. Oh, it just smells lovely. Okay, sweet potato. Oh, it's so soft. This might be one of the most delicious things I've ever had from SakuraCo. This is so good. Okay, let's open up these Nikko yuba chips. And it's wow, it's got that really super bubbly texture. I could sit down to a movie and just destroy a bag of these. I cannot say enough about how happy I am that SakuraCo has sponsored my channel because I really do appreciate what this company does. I think it's great that these wonderful, truly Japanese sweets and treats can be enjoyed by people all around the world. If you want to join in on this beautiful display of wonderful treats, please use my link below, and if you use my code Exjapter at checkout, you'll get $5 off your order, and you'll be supporting the channel. Thank you so much, SakuraCo, for sponsoring the channel. I really love what you do, these amazing boxes that you curate, and anyone who is interested, this is a great time to go ahead and get them as a present for someone you love, or just for yourself to enjoy. Okay, let's get back to the video. Okay, part 2 from Yokohama. You didn't skip the ad, did you? First question here is from Susan Howling 2628. My question is, do residents of Japan find the prices expensive in relation to the average wage? Yes, price rises are pinching Japanese consumers now because wages have remained pretty much stagnant. So while inflation in Japan hasn't been as terrific as it's been in the US and other places, definitely the prices going up here has hurt people's pocketbooks for sure. So a lot of complaints in the media and from ordinary people that things are getting too expensive. Django 3715 asks, best city or town in Japan for yakitori? Well, if you ever find yourself out in Fujiyoshida in Yamanashi, I would definitely recommend Torinobo as the place to go. There's a couple of good places there as well. Yakitori Megumi, if you're out there as a tourist, as an ultimate haven for salarymen, after work eating and drinking. Tokyo's the spot. The competition is fierce. Places like Shimbashi are famous for all their izakayas and yakitori joints. Ebisu area has a lot of yakitori places. I mean, basically a lot of Tokyo has yakitori all over the place. Everyone's going to have their favorites and their special places that they'll go and have their drink and their skewers of chicken. So yeah, Tokyo I think can't be beat. Colt 4x5 says, it seems like certain appliances like dishwashers, large ovens, and clothes dryers aren't popular in Japan. Is it more culture or is it more about electric and plumbing? Good question. Ovens thing is that it's not really a traditional thing in Japan to do much baking. Like pretty much people don't bake at home, and it's not part of the cooking culture, or the home cooking culture I should say. That's the main reason for that, I believe. As for clothes dryers, I think it's electricity. It's the tradition of hanging them out on the line. I think that one may be more cultural, although I can't say I'm an expert on this particular thing. Dishwashers are definitely on the rise though. We have a dishwasher in our house, and it seems like most new houses getting built these days, it's just kind of accepted or standard that a dishwasher is going to be one of the appliances that you get. Bird Kyo 20 asks, if you have any of these, what's your favorite Japanese movie, book series, game, manga, animation, anime? Whew. Big question. I think the first anime that meant anything to me after watching it was Rurouni Kenshin. The old one, the original one. I know they've remade it, and I've started watching the new one, although I'm not very far into it. And I didn't really get into the live action ones, but the original anime, Rurouni Kenshin, was the first one that really kind of hit me in a way. And probably the second one after that was Cowboy Bebop. So, you know, I'm aging myself here, but those were pretty much new animes when I first saw them. Next question, Adi Haifa 9845 asks, please explain how you keep warm in the house when it's very cold outside. Yeah, the first place I lived in Japan, up in the mountains, was a apartment with basically no insulation, single pane windows. Basically, it was colder inside than outside because you know, outside you put your parka on. When you're inside the house, you would take your outer coat off and you just feel really cold. And the truth is now we live in a house, we built a house, and it's got modern insulation, so we now live in a situation where it's not cold on the inside. And that's basically my recommendation, is if you're gonna get a house in Japan, building or buying a new house is the way to get modern insulation. I know the boom is to get Akiya and to upgrade those, but one of the upgrades is gonna have to be to figure out how to get insulation into those things, because one of the reasons they're not the greatest place to live is because, especially if you're somewhere in the winter, the original construction is probably not going to have much in the way of insulation, so you're going to have to add it yourself or suffer through the winter. The next question, RH32668, do you have a favorite enka singer? Is it a dying tradition? Autumn was always enka time for me, still is. Okay, I do not have a favorite enka singer. I am a firm believer though that if you live in Japan, you should learn one enka song for karaoke. I'm going to keep mine secret for the moment. If you ever go to karaoke with me, I'll bring it out. Okay, from Michael McFawn 3199. Hi Paul, what do you think of the new ukiyo-e posters going up in the trains in Tokyo? I saw them on Threads. They're really cool. I'm not in Tokyo, so I haven't actually seen these, but I'm very interested because if you know me, you know the channel at all, I'm very much into Japanese woodblock prints, or ukiyo-e. So maybe there is it an art display or something? I haven't seen the threads, so I'll have to check it out. Okay, the next question I'm going to answer is actually a number of people ask something along the same lines, which is how to study Japanese or advice for Japanese. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, I just have two things to say about it. One is you have to put in the time. Like whatever you do to study, however you choose to go about it, what methods you choose, it's still all about the time. There's just no other way about it, especially when it comes to reading and writing the kanji. So you just got to put the time in, number one. And number two, you're probably going to have to do some experimentation, because I certainly tried things that didn't really work for me until I found things that did work. So don't be afraid to be like, this seems to be going really slow, or this doesn't seem to really be working for me. I want to try this other way to do it. And in this day and age, there are so many different books, so many different methods, so many different apps out there that you could use. Don't be afraid to experiment. Okay, this next question I definitely have an answer for, although it may not be the type of satisfying answer that they want. Hi, Angelinas5224 asks, hey Paul, this might be an odd question, but last month I hit 10 years in Japan. You've been here more than 20. I'm wondering what changes, if any, you experienced between your first 10 years versus your last 10 years. For me, the last 10 years, or I should say the second 10 years of my time here in Japan, was so very different from the first just because of life changes. Some other people ask me about my family life. I don't go into a ton of detail about my family, but I do have one child who is now a teenager in junior high school. So the fact of having a child a little over 10 years ago, the fact that we built our house almost exactly 10 years ago now, in December it will be 10 years since we moved in. So being a house owner, living in a new neighborhood, becoming settled in the job I've had this past 16 years, undertaking a PhD. The real answer to the question is I just went through many life changes that changed my relationship with Japan, got me meeting new people, like new neighbors, other students in my PhD program, other parents because of my kid, that kind of thing. My perceptions of Japan, or what has changed in my relationship to Japan, that's really hard to pinpoint because I had so many life changes happen in the past 10 years that most of my perception changes, or my likes and dislikes, or things I've changed my mind about in Japan have been the result of these other life changes that have happened, not because I spent more time in Japan per se, if that makes sense. I could try to boil down into it and turn this into a larger topic. I'm sure there are some things I could think of, but off the top of my head, it's just my life has changed so much that it's more about that than the time I've spent here. Okay, Jack9229 asks about tipping. My question is whether giving a tip is or can be offensive to a barber, taxi driver, etc. I'm of course familiar with the general rule tipping is not required in Japan. I do not tip at restaurants or hotels. There seems to be this impression pushed by social media mostly that tipping is like incredibly offensive, and if you do it, you're going to be seen as, this horrible person who's like implying they need money or something. I don't know what the reasoning is behind it, but it's generally not the case. Yeah, you don't tip in restaurants, and you don't typically leave tips for hotel staff, but I've left tips for taxi drivers for sure. Just recently traveling with my friend Patrick in Kyoto, we had a taxi driver wait for us at a temple, and I gave him a big chunk of cash on top of the fare, and I just said, "Kimochi desu," like it's my feeling, like please accept this. And there was no fuss about it. I think he definitely appreciated it and felt, his time was worthwhile. My wife and I always give kimochi to workers, like the workers who deliver new appliances or who come and work on our garden or something. When our landscapers show up to do work, we do kimochi, which is basically give a small gift out to them as they're leaving. If it's a small thing, like they just came and they delivered something that took a brief amount of time, we'll give them a few bottles of tea or coffee or something so that they have something to drink and kind of like a little present. The people who delivered our washing machine and wrestled it up to the second floor and installed everything and dealt with our noisy, friendly cat and dealt with me kind of watching how they did it and etc. We gave them a little tiny envelope of money and said, "It's kimochi desu, use it for buying tea or use it for buying lunch or something." And this is instigated by my Japanese wife, not me originally, because I didn't know if that was the culture to do that or not, and so it was my wife who was pushing that we should give this little gift. So if that's coming from a Japanese person, I think that tells you that tipping is not going to be this big problem or this big cultural faux pas if you do it. And finally, Old Grey Wolf _ Okami asks, what were the most difficult hurdles to overcome in transitioning to life in Japan? Honestly, probably one of the reasons I've been here for so long is that the true answer to that is there weren't any major hurdles. I kind of took to Japan right away. I never really had any serious culture shock in the beginning or pretty much anywhere along the time that I've been here. And Japan has just always felt like a good fit for me. And I'm here 20 years later because of this. And basically, I'm not saying that you can't stay here for the long term if you feel you've had a lot of growing pains, but for me, just my honest answer is I didn't find anything particularly troublesome or difficult. And as a result, that's one of the reasons why I'm still here after all this time. Japan has just remained a place that is suited to my character, suited to what I want to do with my life. I'm happy with my family life here, and I really enjoy just the day-to-day, and I love getting out and making these videos and sharing all of this information, and in this particular video answering your questions. I know I did not answer everyone's question. I apologize for that, but I believe, if I'm estimating correctly, the final edited version of this video is probably going to be about 30 to 35 minutes long, so maybe I will do a second question and answer in the future and try to get some more answers out there, but I don't usually make a video much longer than 20 minutes, so I think I should call it quits at this point. If you've made it this far in the video and you still haven't hit the subscribe button or you haven't hit the like button, what are you waiting for? But again, thank you so much for watching. You can support the channel by going down and supporting the sponsors. Thank you to SakuraCo for sponsoring this video specifically. Remember that you can get $5 off your order if you use my code Exjapter at checkout and my link down below. So that would be a great way to support the channel if you've really enjoyed my content. And at the end of the day, thank you so much for watching this particular video. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.